Greetings, in the name of the Most High. We are embarking on a very strange journey with the tariffs. And did you expect, back when we said to look for unexpected things, did you expect that when I said there would be surprising things happening, that there would be something such as what we're witnessing now? Because the whole world is in upheaval. And just overnight, just like that. And most people, I don't think, were ready for it. It happened so quickly. And then on top of that, you've got what I call the weather wars going on in the East to prove, the last gasp effort of the global scientific dictatorship to prove there's global warming. Then I'm here today because, we have anomalous things happening. And so I've got to jump in here when things start, busting loose. And that's how I usually time the podcast. When things are moving, then I'm here. So we also had the resurfacing of, the mass murderer Fauci, which he is a mass murderer unlike anything we've ever seen before in this world. And the people that are dangerous are people in denial. And just, you have to realize the people marching around, I kind of detached myself from the United States, and I looked at them and I just felt so, I felt, poor dear, they're so stupid. All these marchers, they're so fucking stupid that they don't know any better other than to be corralled by the moneyed individuals, by the real billionaires, the trillionaires, the Rothschilds and the Soroses and that level, and organize these rent-a-mobs. And most of the rabble that you see walking around aren't even getting paid. It's their leaders that have the posters and the all pre-made and made, printed well, and the t-shirts and all that are the paid ones. And then the others are just there as a sense of duty, like they feel a duty to the country to, well, if you ask them what they want, they don't know. They just say, well, impeach Trump and impeach Musk and stop the tariffs and stop ripping us off. In other words, taking money that basically is not appropriated to any cause or to any good cause or any existing cause, and dry that slush fund up and repatriate that money back to the Treasury. Now, the problem that you have there is a lot of these people benefit by block grants, and we have government agencies that receive billions and billions and billions of dollars that are not appropriate for them to receive. And that usually then trickles out to, well, usually it's laundered. For example, Ukraine is a money laundering operation, number one. Well, but all wars are really, and then they fall for that. And they walk around with their thumbs up their asses. And if you ask them a question, they don't know the answer. Well, what would you like to see? I just want this stopped. Hands off. And hands off is one of the, it's really amazing that because the whole point of stopping fraud and abuse financially is to save the country for the children, so that there's a future. And it's just the right thing to do, And the other thing is the slogan "hands off" applies to them. You keep your hands off these bogus grants and these bogus outlays of money that all these people are benefiting from, all these programs. One time a guy showed me like all these public programs and said, you can just write yourself a grant. You need money for filmmaking, you just write yourself a grant. And I think there's a lot of people that do that. I've tried that for documentaries and different things. Um, I don't feel that a lot of this public money is public in the first place. I feel like a lot of it is not really it's gone where it shouldn't go, and that by cleaning it up, I'm predicting myself a lot more savings. In fact, I'm predicting that you could actually balance the budget of the United States with the cleaning up the fraud and abuse, and that those instances where something is a legitimate project that has to be funded. For example, I think we can call this the with Fauci popping up. It's the era of Fauci's revenge. Okay. So, and then Fauci's revenge would be the revenge of the left. Again, most of these people wandering around are poor. They have no future. They have all they know is to complain. That's all they know to do. And somehow it works out because if they participate, then they're told they'll be taken care of, which is highly suspect. It'd be the same if the Republicans were doing it as well. I don't see any difference between Republicans and Democrats in this case. I just see, a block of people complaining about something that they don't know anything about. They haven't done the research. They haven't looked into, for example, Doge. What Doge function is to identify money that is earmarked for certain things and people that is not legitimately in the budget or is part of a slush fund. And things like that is, if you take that money, that's basically theft. And so the whole point is by stopping the theft, you save Social Security, you save, entitlements in general. And but most importantly, you're able to balance the budget, which if it isn't balanced in the debt form of, this also goes to global, the tariffs, because the whole point of the economy, the way it was, a debt economy, is that we no longer make things here. What we do is we finance them with debt. So the more things we get, cars and dishwashers and various things that we get from other countries, then there are these trade imbalances, and that then goes directly to debt, and eventually the bubble bursts. It cannot go on, but the wealthy of the world become super ultra wealthy in a debt economy like that. It's kind of like the Federal Reserve when they print $1 for you to have, for us to have. They put $1 of debt. They receive $1. Every time they print $1, they get $1, and basically we owe them $1. So it's basically debt that they print money that we owe, but the money is fiat currency, which is worthless to begin with. It's not backed by anything, but it's a debt instrument. It's not really an instrument of currency. And so it doesn't take a genius to figure out that I'd say within a couple of years, had this kept going and you kept on with these know-nothing politicians who don't know anything about the economy. They don't know shit. They're basically like the man in the street. So they're uneducated and they don't know how the economy works globally. And they keep on with debt financing of everything. Eventually it just comes to a global halt and people just keep kicking that can down the road, So I would have a lot more respect for these idiots if they would just march for, something like, I don't know, freedom of speech or something. I mean, something that for the individual liberty, or for things that would make people more free rather than more encumbered, more enslaved. But there are about half the country who wants to be, and that's basically what we have now. How do you beat the system? Well, the idea of not giving a fuck and being all out of fucks, that goes a long way to beating the system. Being at peace. And the other thing is, we become so sensitized by this social media of what people say and how they critique you and say nasty things and basically make you self-conform or self-edit your post as to not offend and to not draw nasty remarks. Therefore, you're being trained to be a good little slave by social media, simply by self-editing. You are doing the work of the world order anyway. Then we have Colbert on his show, which I think Alex Jones has pointed out, but this is really hilarious. Colbert, begging the deep state to kill Trump. Again, and not realizing that under normal circuit, Democrats don't get prosecuted. There's that old rule. Why? Because they're aligned with Satan. They're aligned with the power of the earth. The left-handed path does not get prosecuted. Only people seeking the righteous path or to do the right thing, or who operate with guilt and humility and things like that. It's wait till you hear what I have to say about Hollywood, about the whole purpose of Hollywood today. I was reminded of something. Well, it's a good time to change. So I'm basically, I guess, in the libertarian camp. I believe in. I don't believe in war. I don't believe in. I do believe in peace through strength, but I also believe not to use that strength. To have the strength so as not to use it. You know what I mean? That there are enemies out there, and there are bullies out there, and there are people that need to be taken down a notch or two. So you've got that, but I don't believe that being a patriotic American, the further you go to the right or the left, ideologically, that where you take other people's ideas. No, you got to stick with your own. My idea was always to balance the debt, was always to be out of war. Now, those are two things that I voted for: no war and no debt. So when the tariffs came, I wasn't caught flat-footed, or like a lot of people are stuck now with a 401k that's been flagging. I knew exactly what they were going to do, and I realized that fundamentally speaking, the only reason that the market is being manipulated up and down is because of bad guys that don't want to see the new system come in and want to see the old system survive, and they want to see Trump driven from office. So they figure if they crash the economy and crash Bitcoin and crash everything, that the people will riot and burn the White House down and take him out of there. And that's what they're hoping. I kid you not. They want to kill Trump, and they want to kill every Trump supporter, or at least put them all in jail for life. And they're not listening. If you try to have a dialogue with people that are against Trump and Musk and so forth, if you have to try to have a dialogue with them, what they'll do is, since they can't argue back, they have no facts, and they're not intelligent, but then what they do is they do punch, So we've seen a lot of cases now where when it finally gets to where you defend yourself and you go, well, this is what I believe, and they don't have anything to say to you because they don't have any intellectual argument. All they know is that if you're taking that position of supporting those men, then you need to be punched in the face. You're hurting trans kids, or something they make up in their mind, because they're feeble-minded to begin with. Hollywood makes people into that. We talked a little bit about Hollywood. Hollywood is basically a druidic, magical, supra-magical, kingdom. Okay. And, basically the reason that the Mecca is called Hollywood is because Hollywood represents a magic wand, as Jordan Maxwell pointed out so long ago. But the magic wand has to be made out of Hollywood. And the people that are involved in Hollywood have to be subject to, that form of, you might call Druidic paganism, if you will, which comes through the Masonic halls, which also have a what in the history of religion, there's a technical term called syncretistic. And so the Masonry is then syncretized with the Druidic ideas at the very top. And so, as Maxwell said, and I find this to be interesting to stumble upon some of his little videos too out of the blue. But he said, movies, which is the big medium, right? Movies are to for the elites. It's all elite. It's all elitist. There is no purpose for movies other than that. So it's either for the elites to tell people where they have been, to manipulate history, to tell people who they are and what they've done. Two, purpose of the movies is to show people what's going on now, what they want people to think about what's going on now. And three, purpose of movies is to tell people what they're going to do, to program people to accepting what they're going to do next. For example, we have a great example in Civil War, which they would just love to have a civil war that goes like the movie that was just hired, a movie by hire, and hacks made the movie, by hacks, Civil War. And but in Hollywood, everyone's a hack. Everyone's a whore. It's another word for Hollywood would be whoredom, which is what God may call it. It is in itself a secret society, and the higher levels of that society are closed to other aspects of the public and other aspects of other secret societies. Hollywood is its own closed unit. And there's a guy that's, I guess he's not going to win any contest for being handsome, but he's a genius mixer. And they asked, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to be honest, misconstrued as calling him ugly. But I mean, he's not he doesn't look like a socialite, let's say. And I say, well, sir, what is the secret to being such a famous mixer? Like you've won 20 Grammys, and what's the secret? And we had a Q&A with him because the equipment was broken that day. So we got off the technical and got into the Q&A. And he goes, the only thing you got to do is learn to schmooze. That's it. Everybody has relatively the same, everyone's talented. There's a big sea of talent where many people can do just what you see people doing. Oh, that's a genius. No one else can do that. And when you have, hundreds of guys that can do just what that guy did, But the difference is, but the guy that's on the screen schmoozes better. So schmoozing. And what that means getting into higher circles of initiation. It means the adept will then go through the higher circles and up the degrees of masonry to become that of a master. And they have their pool of people, and these would be people that I would call Hollywood, because I've seen this side of it, the murderer side of it. Like, that one of their composers tried to murder me at one time, and he did so because he was a music teacher, and he got some boys to go get pharmaceutical phenobarbital. Well, it's a long story. I mean, I've told this story, and I don't want to tell it again. But he was teaching out of Denver, but he had affiliation with composing. In other words, he was tied to like William Morris Agency and other people, and had done movies and different things. So he still was part of that mafia. What they call the music mafia is just that, the music mafia. Sometimes they'll refer to it as the gay mafia. If you want to be a star, you have to join the gay mafia, or they what do they call it? The lavender mafia or something like that. But there are all these. It's all a way of saying that Hollywood is really, I like to look at it as one thing, and it has one rule, And that rule is to fork your soul over in exchange to be an electrician, in exchange to be a property master, in exchange to be a gopher getting coffee, in exchange to working in the mail room of CAA. You want my soul just to do that? Well, what would it be like if everyone's on the same page but you? We would have chaos. So yeah, you got to conform, dude. But what would I do without a soul? Well, that you should take up with your priest. I'm sure he'll tell you to bow down, like he tells everybody. A man needs to make a living, you know. He's got to bow down. And then Jesus comes in and forgives and takes people home. Where does Jesus come in? Jesus, the real thing, is hated by Hollywood. Conservatives are hated by Hollywood because conservatives tend to give deference to, the Bible or to Jesus or to traditional values, like, for example, the Constitution. There can be the only law of the land is basically, sex and power. Money is an automatic, glue thing. It just comes with the territory. They just, whenever they want money, they just have a little magic money machine. They just crank it out. So, so people that think they can beat the system by not schmoozing, okay, by not, they say, well, you need to go press the flesh. Well, you need to do a lot more than that to the flesh. In order to, to make it stick, you got to have that night where everyone's debauched, and everyone, oh yeah, that guy, he's one of us. Yeah, we'll put him in. And they operate as cabals within a cabal. But the thing is, there's only one hierarchical kingdom and one king. Now, who do you suppose the king of Hollywood is? David Lynch had it in Mulholland Drive. It's that little crippled guy, that handicapped guy, that little midget looking at the little television screen in the corner. That was the king of Hollywood. And who is Satan? Well, according to David Lynch, Satan was the cowboy, meaning Satan had access to all the people. And if they complied, and then they got to have a bad attitude after that, trying to break away, he would suicide them in Lynch's universe. So it's, very clear. I would think that from Lynch, people would understand why I've gone to the pages. I've gone to these chat pages. Nobody has a clue what Mulholland Drive is about. Not a clue. I mean, no one. No one knows what it's about. Literally, no one. Zero. So, the IQ level of Americans is probably, and Hollywood itself and the world, has got to be around, 60 to 70, which is basically just enough to be able to, do a job of, working in the mailroom, answering the telephone, being nice with the corporate board meeting, serving the coffee. You know what I mean? It's like, it's on that level. So that's really what we're dealing with. And that was by design also. That wasn't, I won't say it's the fault of the people. I'd say, they thought they were getting an education, but they were getting dumbed down. And then, of course, the phone came in and the social media, and then that's taken it a whole other way to wanting to be liked. Don't you want to be liked? I know you do. Well, Hollywood's like anywhere else. Hollywood loves a winner and hates a loser. And I didn't talk about the relationship between Hollywood and The Chosen. Oh, the people of the series called The Chosen are not chosen. So just let's clear that up, shall we? I mean, that would be a joke upon it. Then in that case, I would try to commit suicide because it would be a mistake my coming here in the first place. If the people working on they like to call themselves The Chosen, and Angel Studios and all that shit. But it's nothing but horse shit. Yeah. When I needed to have therapy because I was dealing, with well, I guess my whole life I've had to deal with this things that happened. Half of my life was spent trying to find out what happened, and then the other half is spending time sort of decompressing from what happened, trying to have a semi quasi. Well, I can't have a normal life. There's no way, because normal would be, well, what I consider normal life. There is a way. That is to be at peace. I told you, my main aspiration in life is to be at peace. And think about it, being at peace. I'll take one of those. Being at peace with all things. Imagine it. You're living in the now. You're at peace. People can be successful, or they can be crashing and burning, or you could be successful, or you could be sick, or you could be well, or you could be infirm, or you could be dying, or you could be, winning. But all of that is irrelevant, because to be at peace, all of that thinking forward and behind has to go. You cannot be at peace and think of the past. You cannot be at peace and think of the future, but you can't let the past go until you can let the past go. How do you let the past go? You have to be at peace with it and then let it go. You got to be at peace with it, and then I forgive you because I'm at peace. I know you stabbed me in the back. I know you tried to kill me, but I'm at peace with everything, and I'm not even living back there. You're living back there feeling guilty. Well, that's for, you figure that out. That's not my job to figure your problems out, and, you're tormented. Well, if I did what you did, I don't know if I'd ever get over it. I hate hurting other human beings when I know that I've hurt them a lot. Most of the time it hasn't been intentionally. It's been accidentally, but I just hate the result of having somebody suffer on account of me. I can't imagine if you were just a predator, playing the game, the Magical Mystery Tour. Can you imagine it? And you go around like, sucking other people's souls and power out of them and then laughing about it. Yeah, you see what I did to that dude? Dude blew his brains out. Now I get a raise. Can you imagine coming to yourself and wanting peace? And all you are is little more than some kind of an animal that basically, dines off people's suffering, a parasite, a little worm. And, you look in the mirror, you realize you've gone so far, there's no way back. And if you add on top of that, the Hollywood, signature is fucking children. So you add to that, and also the trans movement within Hollywood is also a sign of initiation. It's also a special gift is given to parents. Just like, for example, if you were born into a satanic family and you figured out that it was all criminal and the whole world's criminal, it all sucks, and what am I going to do? You might lose your life because in order to save face in the community, your family must somehow arrange for your death in order so they can save their income. It's a money thing. So imagine being that strung out. And then imagine you want to find the way back. You need redemption. You feel it in your heart. Is there any way I can be redeemed? I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry. And, what do you want me to tell you? You were shown the way of not suffering, but you chose to suffer and to make others suffer. OJ in the morning. Good. So you wanted to make other people suffer and you wanted to make yourself suffer because you received a monetary benefit. You received respect from the community. People feared you. They not make a move against you. They know there'll be retaliation. So, it's kind of like watching the politicians, right? Now Fauci is rearing his head because he's saying, I'm going to retaliate by giving you a virus that's going to kill most of your asses. And we'll see if Trump or Patel or any of these people have anything to say to Fauci's threat. I mean, he threatened the whole world yesterday or 2 days ago. You got anything to say about that? Trump? Anything to say about the fact that, millions will be dead because Fauci wants revenge? And he's got a whole army of, what can we say, left-wingers who can't wait to put those masks back. And in fact, they wear the mask in their marches. The guy goes, why are you wearing the mask? He goes, because we're against the government. And it's like, they already know who you are, mask or not. But, I don't get it. I don't get it. If you're so proud of yourselves, take the fucking mask off and be a man, be a woman, be an adult. Don't be like a little kid hiding and running around and, burning Teslas when no one else is looking. Don't be some kind of brat, some kind of asshole like that. Stand up. You want to burn a Tesla? Do it with your chest out and a big torch. You want to really get a pop? You could just burn the Tesla and lock people inside and burn them to death. Then you'd really then you'd get the best lawyers in the world who would volunteer their services for free, and they put you on the docket with Mangione. And that's a hill they're going to die on. They want him free. And it's like, I would be around people that want, yes, but they could help you. They can help you harden your heart. No, I don't advocate violence. I do not advocate burning Teslas or people or anything. I am nonviolent, and I'm a man of peace. I'm looking for peace where I can find it. I'm willing to let grudges go. I've got a lot of potential grudges I could have in my youth of people that set me up for reasons I didn't even know at the time. I was just like a child. I didn't know. I didn't understand what was wrong with me. I just thought maybe I shouldn't have been born. That's a terrible thing for a child to think. Maybe I shouldn't have been born. Once I'm dead, everyone's going to get along fine. I'm out of the way. I'm not causing trouble anymore. And they make you feel embarrassed of your birth. And they never, ever say why. They never say, hey, look, we were gaslighting you. I'm sorry. You were bullied. We were trying to get you to commit suicide. And because that's what Satan wants, a blood sacrifice. And, you were, let's face it, you are one of the chosen. Well, of course I am. And I have the ability to evaluate what does the chosen mean? I'm going to tell you what it means. Just in case you want to analyze yourself to see if you're chosen or not. Chosen brings out the darkness in what would otherwise be good people. That's what the chosen do. That's a byproduct of just being that person. Chosen are just lambs of God that, through no fault of their own and no merit of their own, really, were just born that way. You know it, and I know it. They're the black sheep of the family. Many times can be a chosen one. They bring the worst out in people. They bring the evil out in people. They stir up. You suddenly get to see somebody for who they really are. Oh my God, what an evil son of a bitch that is. Everybody thought he was such a nice guy, but look, that's just when you're around, Zeph. Get out of here. And he'll go back to being a nice guy. Oh, wow. So somebody's wrong here. Either you shouldn't have been born or I should not have been born. One of us shouldn't be here. In the end, only one of us will be. I wonder who that's going to be. In the film Society, the chosen wouldn't be this society people that have a genetic defect that makes them meld together and become a kind of a monster and run a conspiracy over the whole globe, which is a nice way of summing up the problem. But the chosen would be someone like the boy they wanted to sacrifice through no fault of it. People walk up to me in Italy and in Italian. I'm trying to understand Italian. I thought I did for my ex-wife and my daughter, but anyway, they would say to me, I've thought about this movie all my life. Why did they choose him? Why are they following him? Why are they doing this to him? I said, well, the whole idea of the movie was to answer that question by saying he wasn't one of them. He was, adopted baby. But that was never very clearly established. That was, he was told in the end he wasn't one of them. He's not one of them. And that's why they chose to gaslight him and to torture him and to pursue him, to be shunted, to be ripped to shreds, to be destroyed. And they're raising him in their very own home. Yes, here's little Billy. And they're raising him just to sacrifice him. Well, there's a lot of truth in that. And they said, well, why was he chosen? Why are you asking me that question? Because that happened to you and you don't understand why, right? Welcome to the fucking unfairness nightmare, the unfair situation, the totally evil, upside down, illogical situation that people, through no fault of their own, would wind up in mental hospitals or prisons or sacrificed for nothing that they did wrong. Just for breathing, existing, heart beating. So yeah, but it's the chosen who psychically know where all the bodies are buried. And that makes the evil people go evil because they feel like they're seen by the presence of one of these people. Now, where are they? The chosen are all over the world. Wherever you have them, there are the chosen. The chosen are not in the series The Chosen. The chosen are not necessarily Jesus freaks, at least consciously. They might be. They might not be. They might be aware of that. They might not be aware. They may be in flux. They may be on their way to learning more about themselves. But who was the first one that really got gaslit, treated that way? Wasn't it Jesus? Who was, the most unfair thing in all of history would be to attack Jesus' phony trial and crucifixion when he didn't do anything he was accused of. How about innocent people on death row who never did a damn thing to anybody? How about the whole damn fucking system? And no, you cannot overthrow the system and wind up happy. You can't have a civil war and be happy. You can't get rid of them who oppose you and be happy. Violence begets violence. Getting rid of people will only beget more violence to you, your home, your children. You will be, as you are now, a total failure. You're trying to find a way out of being a failure. Well, then you have to join me in my quest for peace. What's one of the main hallmarks of peace? How can one let the past go? Well, when I say let the past go, that's, and the Bible refers to that as forgiveness. And God says, if you can't forgive, then I won't forgive you. In other words, you won't be forgiven. And that's true. But what does forgiven mean? It means peace. If you can't forgive, you will have no peace. You forgive, and it's an act of peace. And to the extent that you can even forget, and you've really come to terms with what happened. Yes, they stabbed you in the back. Yes, they lied about you. Yes, they lied in court. Yes, they put you away. Yes, they did all these things that you didn't deserve. Yes. Yes, it was all a conspiracy because you're not on Satan's side. So they become bullies, and when they operate in their little hives, and they search around for who they can devour. Why? Because without a sacrifice, these people deflate like a cheap balloon. So they need to constantly be on the hunt for another victim, because if they don't, they die because they're dead already. So that shouldn't, once you really put that in perspective, if you understood what I just said, that will cause peace to come to your heart. You're going to laugh right now with me. You're going to laugh. You mean you wound up blessed? You're the most blessed. You are blessed. Just to know what I just told you and to not have to figure it out on your own. That is a big blessing. Thank you, Lord. And don't worry, chosen people tend to flock around other chosen people, just like birds of a feather. It's true. So if you are chosen, then you're going to have others in your circle. And so it's not a big deal like, I'm chosen, I'm special. If they knew that, they're chosen. Yes, they have a chosen, the Federal Reserve, the Illuminati, the Order of the Golden Dawn, Anton LaVey and his stupid daughter that became Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift clone. Oh, man. God puts us on the earth to trigger them. Understand? Now, sometimes I've been in a room where people start getting triggered and they start screaming and yelling and dropping things. One time, Trish and I went to this church, this black church, and where was it? In Pasadena somewhere. And Andre Crouch's church, his sister was running it, the famous gospel singer, Andre Crouch. And he was just like her slave, and it was just a sham. And they started having communion, and they were all getting upset of what were we doing there? Why were we there? They started getting visibly upset, and they dropped the whole communion tray and basically wanted us to leave. They wanted us to leave the premises so they could go back to having church. We didn't even open our mouths. We didn't say a thing. They could see. It disturbed the whole congregation. It ruined the entire Sunday service. Ruined. I'll tell you another one that was chosen. One that played it in the movies. I forget what it's called. It was about the caveman with Samuel L. Jackson. He was like a caveman in Central Park. I'm paraphrasing it. Not that great of a movie, but I just remember it. And how do you know he was chosen? Because when he was at the bar, he just kept drinking until he was just completely smashed. And that's something that a chosen person does. I can't explain it. It's the context to the bar. When, there was nobody there. It was just, he had the ability to drink there, and he just kept it on going. And the way he did it, and he was an expert pianist. They were there thinking maybe they rehabilitate him because he was accepted into Juilliard, okay? And he was going to graduate. They wanted him to put on a concert, thinking that would rehabilitate him. And of course, that all went down the tubes. He's not supposed to go to Juilliard. He's supposed to live in that cave. His daughter would come to see him and try to help him, but he was in his natural habitat. You understand? He was he didn't refuse to go to Juilliard. It became obvious that there were rules and fences and blockades all around. And the filmmaker, God bless her, could identify those things and could put it into a language that we could understand. Although I've talked to dozens of people about The Caveman's Valentine, I think it's called. I've talked to dozens of people about that movie. Not one of them, not even one, got what it was about. So, okay. So the people that know about what I'm saying on the other side, the world, I call them the worlders. They love the world. The world is their thing, right? They're worlders, and they want to win. And those that know about that have to be a bit sheepish because, see, if you know about that, it means you're aligned with murderers. If you're unrepentant in your knowing about that, then you're an evil person, seen by all, everybody, the whole universe. You're a shitty person. You're shit. Why? Because of all the people that suffered because of you. Whole world suffers because of you. Because you're participating in a global system run by Satan, whether you think he's real or not, we'll just call it, run by an evil connection of a hive mind, of a psychical hive mind between all people, which is artificially created. All the people who have been initiated into it have given their souls up. They have nothing to live for except for preying on each other and searching for prey. So, people that are, I remember there's this one guy, he called a pastor on the radio on a Christian station. And he goes, everyone in the church is mean to him. And the only solace he's found is when he goes and sits on a mountain. He was from Colorado. And, and I realized he was being gaslit and bullied in church because he wasn't one of them, because he wasn't a worlder, because he was Antichrist, right? The only spirit in the church today is the Antichrist. So they drove him out, and the guy on the phone, the pastor goes, "You need to see a psychiatrist." This is a guy, this pastor, a radio personality, who is against psychiatry, who is against psychology, who is against traditional therapy without biblical references, who is against all that. Yet for this young man, he should go to therapy, to a psychiatrist, so that he can be acceptable in church. I got so mad at hearing that. I almost threw that phone I had. In the old days, we had these big, heavy phones. Just about threw that phone through the window. I was so mad. I just couldn't believe that this motherfucker, and yes, I have daydreamed a lot about, getting a guy like this and just, waterboarding him in my garage, and putting him on video and beating a confession out of him and let him tell you how much he loves Satan, even though millions follow him as a pastor on the radio. I would love to do that, but I can't. My Lord won't let me. I have a built-in block against being a criminal and against, violence to people. So we don't just kidnap someone and beat a confession out of them. Although, boy, it sure sounds like something we ought to do to a bunch of people right now, but we can't do that. However, we can do something even more devastating, and that's pray. And I never heard from that pastor again. He lost his radio show. Well, I prayed hard that God would remove him from the fucking ministry, as he calls it. And then there are the worlders who feel sorry for you. And they blame you and your free will and your capability of choice. And oh, poor dear, he chose the wrong thing. No, lady, he was chosen. You can't go against that. But what about free will? Well, when God chooses you, you tend to go with God, don't you? So that's where my free will went. I'm not, oh, yes, I was chosen, but I want to go with a football coach. Maybe I can suck his dick and he'll like me. You know, come on, please. Fuck. I mean, is this hard? No, we know everything you're going to say, Zeph. We just we can't join the conversation. Right, because you get in trouble. Right? So why do you do these movies? There's only one reason. And let's just say God's very pleased when I do a movie. When I do anything creative that share with people. And I can feel his great pleasure. Especially when like somebody hates the word Jesus and I go, Jesus, 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 Jesus. Hey, chosen, I'm with Jesus. You need to study. You need to become like an apprentice to someone, and then after a couple of years, you can be with Jesus. I'm with Jesus. And fuck you. All right. Enough said. At your service, always. And with that, I bid you shalom. Shalom. Love that word, shalom. Peace, peace, peace.